Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel for the final war of the season, war number 11. We have the same three bands, and I got to bring in a team today that is sort of my greatest hits of season 31, Apocalypse for sure, as well as Archangel and Nebula. I have a bit of a lighter load today. It was a really fun map to plan with DLL today. We had a good time and really set up some really good counters, but the other Apocalypse and Archangel duo was going to be taking a lot of those difficult Horseman Archangel fights later, so I only have 4 fights. And that really speaks to how much some of the other players on our team really clutched today, because we did really need this win today to have a hope to stay in Masters. We're actually currently number 2 in Platinum 1, so it's going to be really important to win today if we want to have any chance. With a little bit of luck, we can make Masters. I'm checking the SIG of the Wasp, and I see that she is SIG 20. That means that basically the cooldown timer is going to be pretty long when I'm going to be either baiting a heavy or a special 1. I'm pretty heavily boosted just because it's the last war. It's a little bit YOLO here. We just want to make sure that nothing bad happens. And I do throw on the indestructible just because it's Wasp, and her heavy attacks are like guaranteed crits and they do really hurt. So let's see what this AI does. We just want to ride out this unblockable. She doesn't charge at us, so that was pretty easy. That went about as good as it can go. We're going to bait out this heavy before high ground starts and just start comboing her. A couple hits in the block during the cooldown timer is no big deal. In general, we're trying to not hit her when the cooldown timer isn't on, just in case she evades. But I did notice that she wasn't really evading me too much in the duels, so there is a potential bug there that I'm not going to really say anything more about, but Apocalypse OP is confirmed once again. So now we're trying to bait a special 1. That's another way to get the cooldown timer going. Now she is over a bar of power again, so really we can just trade our special 1s for this entire fight and probably be fine. Not have to worry about taking any blocked hits with high ground, not have to worry about the unblockable at all. We have her just where we want her. As long as she decides to actually throw a special, then we should be fine. She only has like 100k health. So even though Apocalypse is unramped here, I'm just using him to get the single charge, and also just because he's a rank 4 and there really is nothing dangerous about that fight if you can survive the first like 7 to 8 seconds. So that is the end of that. No damage taken practically. Next up we have Masochism node, and we're going to use Archangel. Now Archangel is not going to have any enhancements here, so he has class disadvantage. We don't have House of X or anything. He's not a horseman, so this is just pure out of the gate Archangel. And the way I'm going to start the fight is hopefully with a re-parry, so that we can trigger Masochism, but he does throw a heavy, so now I'm really trying to land a heavy and get some bleeds. We got amazing RNG so far. So we got 4 bleeds, and then we converted a neurotoxin already. When you have several bleeds on the opponent, you actually will stop the ability for the opponent to purify your debuffs. It's one of those really cool abilities that Archangel has in his kit. Mutants in general are countering Shrug. Archangel natively has that in his kit. So you can see, even with only a few neurotoxins, the fact that we had those bleeds on him, it was going to basically bypass Masochism completely, and the fight goes down before it gets too dangerous. So next up we have this Stryfe. This is on path 2. I was a little confused about why he was here, because Apocalypse is the favorite counter for the path 2 stuff with Hard Knock Life, because he can go Disorient Immune. I'm reading his abilities because I want to make sure that with the SIG ability I don't make him go invisible, and the way to do that is if he has 5 of the telepathic charges and you hit him and he glances, then he will go invisible. So I just need to be careful to not do basic hits if I see the 5 telepathic charges, otherwise he can go invisible and I can get hit. Of course, I would probably survive, but it's just like you want to avoid that when fighting him. But yeah, I'm a little confused why he's here. We're going to start with just a parry and then, a heavy attack and then just kind of back off. We do kind of want to play the node, but we also want to become Disorient Immune. So now we can parry. We're going to do some 5-hit combos and get to our special 2. But, you know, again, if Apocalypse is the main counter here and you're going to be putting a mutant here who's not even the hardest mutant to fight, it was just a little confusing to me. Maybe they were assuming that we only had one rank 4 Apocalypse and they wanted to bait us to bring him here so that we couldn't bring him on the other side of the map. But we countered that just by sending a second Apocalypse the other way and then making Archangel a horseman over there. And yeah, so, you know, not a good placement at all. That was just way too easy. But anyway, that's our third fight. And a fitting way to end our season is sort of our new sort of all-star champ, the one that we got to use almost as much as Apocalypse this season, is Nebula. And we're going up against Nimrod here. I think in the off-season I took him here before, but this might be the first time during the season that I'm taking him on node 46. So this obviously has the strike counter combat power rate, which means if I mess up, I won't be able to get to my specials. But if we go into our amp charges right off the bat, we want to get to number 5. And once we hit 5, then the strike counter node is going to turn off before we get any of those. So we kept the power start 1 on because I can just sort of passively build these things, bait out heavies, push them back a little bit, bait out special 1s. We're already at 2 bars of power, so now I'm going to do my best to get all the way up to 20. And, you know, that additional armor and block proficiency that they gave Nebula is very nice. It's really helping in a fight like this when it's sort of like a mini boss amount of health. And we transfer over 19, which becomes 38, and that nukes him down. So the strategy works again. The one thing that I did differently now than I did over the off season is that I made sure to be over 2 bars of power before I parried, because once you parry, you lose the ability accuracy that you get on robots. So you want to make sure that you're over 2 bars of power so that you will not get special locked, if that makes sense. And finally, as you can see in the background, we are having the results right here. BG3 just had an absolutely stellar performance. We got the donut in our final war. The defense also really showed up today with 7 kills, just absolutely amazing. I tried some new things on the defense and it either baited them or they just kind of gave up when they saw they were losing. But either way, 7 deaths on 1 defense is huge. Big shout out to DLL, who had an amazing war. Definitely check out his video. Also my buddy Toffray, he had a deathless season, as did DLL. Toffray took 83 fights this season, did not die 1 time, so many mini bosses. He finished the final boss off with Sim Supreme taking a red Magneto. It was just absolutely incredible, such a great team effort. And there were so many more MVPs in this war in particular, but just to get that 165 at the very end was fantastic, and I'm very grateful to be part of this amazing group. The final score being there with 18 deaths to 7. Yeah, we won handily, so now we're just kind of awaiting the results to see if we did sneak into Masters. We needed to move up 2 spots, so of course that does require some losses for the teams above us, and then, you know, the final results, which are tallied overnight, and we'll know sometime tomorrow morning. But I do have a pretty good feeling that we did enough with this 6-5 record to get there. And finally, we're going to look at my personal stats here. Normally I would put this in a separate video, but in general people weren't watching those, so I'm going to tack it on here if you're interested. Most used champs, it makes sense. Apocalypse was my rank 4, that he was going to take 19 out of my 61 fights. Additionally, Man-Thing, kind of one of the unsung heroes here, he did take some mini bosses. He took a lot of nodes that required bleed immunity and the rest of utility that he had. He's just an absolute monster with Mystic Dispersion. And, you know, I think the way with bans and everything, we had to be a little bit more creative, and sometimes sending Man-Thing made sense. So really happy with that rank up. Additionally, we have Mole Man, Archangel, and Nebula coming in tied at 3rd with 8 fights each. And then some lesser load for CGR. Cable took a couple mini bosses. War Machine took a couple bishops, and Abomination as well. most seen defenders. I took 3 rank 4 dooms. I took 3 surfers. I think at least one of them was rank 4. Took spam 3 times, I Hulk, Bishop, and Guardian all 3 times. So very symmetrical there with 6 champions each 3 times. Then a number of other champions I took twice, but I didn't include them. And then I think the most interesting thing is the different lanes that I took. They were a little bit all over the place. You know, looking in section 1, I did take path 1 4 times, as well as path 2, path 6, path 4. And then in section 2, it did sort of conglomerate around path 3 and path 2 pretty often because I took node 46 many times. But additionally, checking out 6B and 9B as well, you know, using Nebula and War Machine and some other ones. And then, you know, looking at these final stats, in the 11 wars, I took a common fight just about in every war, and I took 15 mini bosses, so that's more than 1 mini boss per war. That number, I think, as a percentage is going up every season and is pretty exciting. And then the final stats, I died in the second fight of the entire season. It was really discouraging. It was I-Bomb versus a rank 4 Doom. Just didn't go well. I had a bad dex and took a special 2. It was pretty embarrassing. And then the cleanup fight didn't go super well either. But, you know, aside from that, after that one, we went 59-0 for the rest of the season. So I'm on a 59 win streak right now, which is great, just to clutch out the rest of the season, to get to use the rank 4 Apocalypse. And, you know, that's about my average. I know that I'm not sort of like the most skilled player in the BG in terms of the amount of fights and the load that I can take, but I figure if I'm taking an average of 5 or 6 fights per war, really filling out the utility that we need, using Apocalypse when needed, taking mini bosses when needed, I'm fulfilling my role. And in our BG, you know, we really do try to spread the load as best we can so that nobody is just sitting around as the pre-fight guy. And that way everybody feels good. They feel safe in their assignments, and you know, a few people do take a little bit more than others, Tafre. But in general, we are just a great BG, so much fun, and yeah, that's going to kind of wrap up the season. So thank you for coming along this journey with me, for checking out all of these fights. I will have a crystal opening for sure once this is all done, and we'll see the results if we made it to Masters or if we got stuck in Platinum 1. But just thanks to everybody in SSx, thanks to all my followers and everybody who watches my videos. If you are new to the channel, please do consider subscribing. As we move forward, you're going to see more war, more guides, and more MCOC stuff in general. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great day, and I will catch you in the next one.